The discovery. The neon signs of New Shanghai's upper levels cast their gaudy reflections into the puddles at Kai Winter's feet as he descended another set of corroded stairs into the abandoned underground market district. His boots splashed through decades of accumulated groundwater, each step echoing off walls that hadn't heard human footsteps in nearly 50 years. Kai pulled his environmental mask tighter against his face. The air down here was technically breathable, but the musty smell of decay and oxidized metal made him grateful for the filter. His handheld scanner swept methodically through the darkness, its blue beam cutting through the gloom as it searched for any sign of the energy signature he'd detected from above. "Come on," he muttered, "where are you hiding?" The underground markets had been sealed off after the stellar plague of 2187 devastated Earth's major population centers. What had once been a thriving multicultural bazaar, where humans and a dozen alien species traded everything from exotic spices to forbidden technologies, was now a tomb of abandoned shops and restaurants. Kai wasn't supposed to be down here. No one was. But after losing his third restaurant in 5 years, he'd grown desperate for something, anything, that might reignite his passion for cooking. The sterile, corporate kitchens of the upper levels felt hollow, devoid of the soul that had drawn him to culinary arts in the first place. The scanner chirped, pulling Kai from his thoughts. The energy reading was stronger now, pulsing like a heartbeat from behind a collapsed storefront. He picked his way through the rubble, ducking under a fallen beam. The scanner's chirping grew more insistent. Holy stars, Kai breathed as his light fell upon it. There, half buried in debris but somehow intact, stood an alien food cart. Its sleek, organic curves marked it as Varanasi design, a species that had vanished from the galaxy centuries ago. The cart's surface was covered in swirling patterns that seemed to shift in his lamplight, and despite decades of abandonment, its metallic skin remained untarnished. Kai approached cautiously. He'd heard stories about Varanasi technology, how it merged the mechanical and the organic in ways humans still couldn't fully comprehend. The cart was bigger than Earth's ancient street food vendors, nearly the size of a small kitchen. Its preparation surface was studded with what looked like crystalline growths, and unfamiliar implements hung from hooks that curved like vines. As he drew closer, something on the cart responded to his presence. A soft humming filled the air, and threads of bioluminescence began to trace the swirling patterns on its surface. Kai's heart raced. It was still active after all these years. He reached out to touch the cart's surface, and the moment his fingers made contact, a holographic display burst to life above the preparation area. Alien script danced in the air, accompanied by three-dimensional images of ingredients Kai had never seen before. Some looked like they came from ocean depths, others from alien worlds long lost to time. "This is impossible," he whispered, but his chef's instincts were already analyzing the holographic recipes, recognizing patterns in the way ingredients were combined and prepared. The Varanasi might have been alien, but cooking was a universal language. A sound behind him made Kai spin around, his light cutting through the darkness. For a moment, he thought he saw a figure watching him from the shadows, tall and ethereal, with too many fingers on too long hands. But when he blinked, there was nothing there. The cart's humming changed pitch, and new holograms appeared, these showing the cart in use, ghostly Varanasi chefs preparing dishes that made his mouth water despite their alien nature. But there was something else in these images, something in the way the ancient chefs moved and the expressions on their alien faces. They weren't just cooking, they were performing a ritual. Kai's scanner began to detect new energy patterns emanating from the cart. The reading suggested it wasn't just a simple cooking station, there were storage systems, preservation units, and something his device couldn't even classify. This wasn't just a food cart. It was a repository of a dead civilization's culinary heritage. He had to know more. The corporate kitchens above might have rejected his innovative spirit, but here was something that could revolutionize not just cooking, but humanity's understanding of Varanasi culture. If he could decode these recipes, understand this technology. A distant rumble from the levels above reminded Kai that he was on borrowed time. The market district's structural integrity wouldn't last forever. He needed help, someone who could translate the alien script, someone who understood Varanasi technology. As he reluctantly prepared to leave, Kai noticed something had been scratched into the cart's surface near its base. Unlike the flowing Varanasi script, these marks were crude and human-made. They spelled out 3 words that made his skin prickle. Some memories burn. Kai recorded the cart's location in his device and began the long climb back to the surface. He didn't know exactly what he'd found, but he knew it would change everything. In the darkness behind him, the cart's bioluminescence slowly faded, waiting once again for the right moment to share its secrets. Ancient flavors. The University of New Shanghai's Xenoarchaeology department occupied a sprawling complex of glass and steel that seemed to defy gravity. Dr. Jia Patel's office, however, remained stubbornly earthbound, a cluttered space filled with artifacts, holoprojections, and the perpetual scent of traditional chai tea. "These readings are extraordinary," she said, examining the data from Kai's scanner. Her dark eyes narrowed as she manipulated the holographic display, expanding sections of alien text that floated above her desk. "And you say the cart was fully operational?" Kai nodded, watching as she worked. He'd spent 3 days tracking down someone with expertise in Varanasi culture, and Dr. Patel's name had come up repeatedly. "The interface activated as soon as I touched it. But I couldn't make sense of the recipes." "Recipes?" Gia's fingers froze above the display. "Mr. Winters, what you're looking at aren't just cooking instructions. These are memory patterns." She gestured at the flowing script. The Varanasi didn't just cook food, they imbued it with experiences, emotions, even historical events. Every dish was a story, a moment in time preserved through molecular gastronomy we still can't comprehend. "But why hide it in an underground market?" Kai asked, leaning forward. "And why a food cart, of all things?" Gia's expression grew serious. "Because food carts were sacred to them. While other species built temples and monuments, the Varanasi believed true culture lived in street food, in the daily ritual of sharing meals with strangers." She paused, considering her next words carefully. Before they vanished, they were working on a way to preserve their entire civilization's memory through their cuisine. The implications hit Kai like a gravity wave. "You're saying those recipes could be the last surviving record of Varanasi culture," Jia finished. "But they're encrypted. See these patterns?" She highlighted a series of interlocking symbols. "They require specific ingredient combinations to unlock. Get it wrong, and the memory degrades." Kai thought about the warning scratched into the cart's base. "Some memories burn," he murmured. Gia's head snapped up. "Where did you hear that?" "It was carved into the cart. Human writing, not Varanasi." She began pulling up historical records, her fingers dancing through layers of data. There were rumors, decades ago, about researchers trying to recreate Varanasi dishes. Most went mad. Some experienced memory feedback so intense they forgot who they were. She fixed Kai with a stern look. "This isn't just cooking, Mr. Winters. It's dangerous technology." But Kai was already thinking about the ingredients he'd seen in the holographic recipes. Some of these items must still exist. The Varanasi traded with dozens of species, they wouldn't have used components that were impossible to obtain. "You're not seriously considering." "I have to try," Kai interrupted. "You said it yourself, this could be their last surviving record. We can't just leave it buried." Jia sat back, studying him. "Why? Why risk everything for alien recipes?" Kai thought about his failed restaurants, about the soulless corporate kitchens above. "Because cooking should be more than just fuel. It should connect people, preserve traditions, tell stories." He gestured at the floating text. The Varanasi understood that better than anyone. After a long moment, Jia sighed. I may know someone who can help. There's a xenobotanist at the Lunar Gardens, Dr. Reza Khalil. He specializes in preserving extinct alien flora. If anyone can identify suitable ingredient substitutions, it's him. She began transferring data to Kai's device. But promise me you'll be careful. Start with something simple. The basic recipes, the daily dishes. Don't attempt the deeper memory patterns until we understand what we're dealing with. Kai agreed, but his mind was already racing with possibilities. The cart's interface had shown him glimpses of dishes that defied conventional physics, foods that changed color with emotion, broths that swirled with actual memories, garnishes that sang ancient Varanasi songs. As he left Jia's office, his device chimed with a message from an unknown sender. The text was brief but sent chills down his spine. The memories are awake now. You'll need protection. Meet me at the night market. Look for the vendor selling earth spices. Kai stared at the message, then at the stream of hover traffic flowing past the university windows. Above, the neon sprawl of New Shanghai stretched toward the stars. Somewhere in that maze of light and shadow, someone knew what he'd found. Someone who might have answers about the warning on the cart. He touched his device, saving the message. The night market was dangerous, a semi-legal bazaar where anything could be bought or sold. But if he wanted to unlock the cart's secrets, he needed every advantage he could get. Besides, he thought with a grim smile, what better place to learn about forbidden alien cuisine than a market where the impossible was sold daily? As Kai stepped into a waiting hover taxi, he didn't notice the shimmer of active camouflage in the shadows behind him, or the tall, impossibly thin figure that watched him leave. The figure raised a hand with too many fingers, touching what might have been an ear. He's made contact with the archaeologist, it whispered in a voice like wind through crystal. The patterns are aligning. Shall we proceed? The answer, when it came, was lost in the roar of passing traffic. But the figure's expression, if it could be called that, suggested the game was only beginning. The first taste. The night market of New Shanghai existed in perpetual twilight, occupying a vast dome where holographic stars twinkled eternally overhead. Kai moved through crowds of humans and aliens, following his nose toward the spice section. The air was thick with competing aromas, sweet, sharp, and sometimes dangerous. He found the earth spice vendor exactly where the message said they would be. The stall was unremarkable except for its owner, a woman who appeared to be in her 60s, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to shift color in the market's artificial light. "You're the one who found the Varanasi cart," she said. Not a question. She was measuring out saffron with hands that moved too precisely to be fully human. "I'm Zara. Former chef to the Arcturian embassy, current, collector of interesting things. How did you know about the cart?" Kai asked, keeping his voice low. Zara's smile didn't reach her color-changing eyes. "Because I was there the last time someone tried to use it. 30 years ago. The results were unfortunate." She reached under her counter and produced a small box made of what looked like living metal. "You'll need these to safely handle Varanasi ingredients. Biosynthetic gloves. They'll protect you from memory feedback." Kai took the box cautiously. "Why help me?" "Because you're a real chef. The others were scientists, soldiers, corporate spies. They wanted to weaponize Varanasi cuisine." She spat the word weaponize like it was poison. "You want to understand it." Before Kai could respond, a commotion erupted nearby. Market security drones were sweeping through the crowds, scanning faces. Zara's expression hardened. "Go. Take the service tunnel behind my stall. And remember, start with happiness. Joy is easier to digest than sorrow." She pressed a data chip into his hand. "Ingredient substitutions. Now run." Kai slipped away just as the drones reached Zara's stall. Through the crowd's noise, he heard her greeting the security forces with cheerful innocence. Hours later, Kai stood before the Varanasi cart in the abandoned market district, wearing Zara's gloves and surrounded by carefully sourced ingredients. Dr. Patel's translations floated above his workstation, along with Zara's substitution notes. "Start with happiness," he muttered, selecting the simplest recipe in the cart's database. The holographic interface responded to his movements, showing him how to begin. The cooking process was unlike anything he'd experienced. The cart's surface adapted to his touch, its crystalline implements extending and retracting as needed. He followed the recipe with methodical precision, combining earth spices with synthesized alien ingredients. The result was a small, iridescent sphere that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. Kai hesitated, then lifted it to his lips. The first taste exploded across his consciousness like a supernova. He was no longer in the dark underground market, he was on a Varanasi world, standing in a bustling street bazaar under triple suns. The air was filled with crystalline chimes, and everywhere he looked, tall, graceful figures moved with fluid grace. He felt their joy, their community, their celebration of life through food. Every bite carried not just flavor but pure, distilled happiness. He understood suddenly why the Varanasi had considered street food sacred. It wasn't just sustenance, it was communion. The vision faded slowly, leaving Kai gasping and gripping the cart for support. The sphere was gone, but its taste lingered on his tongue, indescribable yet perfect. "Remarkable, isn't it?" The voice made him spin around. A figure stepped from the shadows, one of the tall, ethereal beings he'd seen in his vision. But this one was real, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing gently in the darkness. "I am Vexna," the being said, its voice like chimes in the wind. "One of the last Varanasi observers. We've been waiting for someone like you, Kai Winters." "The Varanasi aren't extinct," Kai whispered. "Not extinct. Changed. We uploaded most of our consciousness into our food before the Great Catastrophe. Those who remained behind became guardians, watching for the right moment, the right person." Vexna gestured at the cart. "Our greatest artists weren't painters or sculptors, they were our street chefs. They preserved our history, our culture, our very essence in their dishes." The implication staggered Kai. "The cart is one of many, scattered across the galaxy. Each contains a piece of who we were. But this one..." Vexna's patterns shifted to a deep blue. "This one contains our most precious memories. The ones that could restore our people, if properly prepared." Kai thought of Zara's warning about weaponization, about the security forces in the night market. Others will want this power. They already do. You'll need to learn quickly, Kai Winters. The recipe you just prepared was a beginning, but there are darker flavors to master. Vexna produced a small crystalline device. "If you choose to continue, use this to contact me. But remember, some memories aren't meant to be digested alone." The Varanasi melted back into the shadows, leaving Kai alone with the softly humming cart and a decision that would change not just his life, but potentially the fate of an entire civilization. He looked at his hands, still wrapped in Zara's protective gloves, then at the holographic recipes floating invitingly above the cart. The next one in sequence pulsed with a deeper, more complex pattern. "Time to cook," he said softly, and began to gather his ingredients. Behind him, unseen, the crystalline device left by Vexna pulsed in harmony with the cart's rhythms, its light casting strange shadows that danced like memories given form. Hidden dangers. The underground laboratory Dr. Jia Patel had hastily assembled was a maze of borrowed equipment and jury-rigged sensors. In its center, the Varanasi food cart hummed with increasing intensity as Kai prepared his fourth memory-infused dish of the week. "The neural activity readings are off the charts," Jia muttered, studying her displays. "Each dish is more complex than the last. The molecular structures are, evolving. Kai barely heard her. His focus was entirely on the crystalline bowl before him, where something that resembled liquid starlight swirled and shifted. The protective gloves Zara had given him glowed faintly as he worked, their biosynthetic material responding to the energies flowing through the cart. "This one contains a memory of their first contact with humans," he explained, carefully adding what looked like fragments of frozen lightning, a synthetic replacement for an extinct Varanasi spice. "Vexna says it's crucial to understanding why they chose to preserve themselves this way." Jia frowned. "I'm still not comfortable with how much we're trusting this observer. The historical records never mentioned surviving Varanasi." "That was the point," came a melodic voice as Vexna materialized from the shadows. Even after several meetings, the Varanasi's appearance was startling, tall, ethereal, with patterns of bioluminescence that shifted with their emotions. "We had to be certain humanity was ready." A sudden alarm from Jia's equipment interrupted them. The dish in Kai's bowl had begun to pulse with a rhythm that matched the cart's harmonics. The air itself seemed to thicken with potential energy. "It's ready," Kai said softly. But before he could taste the creation, the laboratory security systems flashed red. Multiple figures in stealth suits materialized around them, weapons raised. "Step away from the cart," commanded a cold voice. A woman in a corporate executive suit emerged from behind the soldiers, her cybernetic eyes scanning the scene. "This technology is now the property of Stellar Dynamics Corporation." "Director Zhao," Jia gasped. "This is a university research project, you have no authority. "We have every authority," Zhao cut her off. "The potential applications of memory-infused food are too valuable to leave in academic hands. Imagine, military training downloaded through a simple meal. Corporate espionage via dessert. The market potential is unlimited." "That's not what this is for," Kai protested, still holding the bowl. "These are people's lives, their history. Their history is now our intellectual property," Zhao smiled. "Though I must thank you for proving the concept works. Our previous attempts to activate the cart were unsuccessful." Vexna's patterns had shifted to a deep, warning red. "You were the ones who tried to force the memories. You caused the burnouts. Acceptable losses in pursuit of progress," Zhao waved dismissively. "Now, hand over the dish and step aside. Our specialists will take over from here." Kai looked down at the swirling liquid starlight in his bowl, then at Vexna. The Varanasi gave an almost imperceptible nod. "You want to taste Varanasi memory?" Kai asked Zhao. "Then taste this." In one fluid motion, he lifted the bowl to his lips and drank. The world exploded into consciousness. He was no longer in the laboratory, he was experiencing the Varanasi's first contact with humanity, centuries ago. But not just from one perspective. He was every Varanasi present, feeling their collective wonder, their hope, and their growing horror as they realized what humanity might do with their technology. He saw the decision to hide their knowledge in plain sight, disguised as simple food carts. Saw the chosen observers who would wait through the centuries. Felt the layered protections they had built into every recipe, protections now surging through his system. Kai opened his eyes to chaos. The bowl's remaining contents had transformed into pure energy, creating a barrier between the cart and Zhao's forces. Where soldiers had stood, there were now only empty stealth suits, their occupants transformed into quantum patterns trapped in an endless loop of the Varanasi's most peaceful memories. Zhao staggered back, her cybernetic eyes fritzing. What did you do?" "The memories protect themselves," Vexna explained calmly. "And now they protect him too. The cart has chosen its new guardian." Kai felt the change in his body. The Varanasi recipes were now part of him, accessible but safe from those who would misuse them. He could see the quantum patterns that made up reality itself, patterns that could be rearranged through the art of cooking. "Leave," he told Zhao. The cart's knowledge isn't meant for weapons or profit. It's meant to bring people together, to share experiences across the gulf of time and space. The corporate director didn't need to be told twice. She fled, leaving her transformed soldiers behind. "They'll be fine in a few hours," Vexna assured Jia, who was staring open-mouthed at the scene. "Though they may develop a sudden appreciation for Varanasi street food." Kai turned to the observer. "You knew this would happen." The cart wasn't just waiting for someone to cook its recipes. It was waiting for someone to understand why we cook, Vexna finished. To see food as we did, not as fuel or weapon or commodity, but as the thread that binds all conscious beings together. The cart's hum had changed to a harmonic that seemed to resonate with Kai's very atoms. New recipes were unlocking in his mind, not just Varanasi memories now, but the potential to create new ones, to forge new connections between species and cultures. "So," Jia said, finally finding her voice. "What happens now?" Kai looked at his hands, still shimmering with quantum possibilities, then at the cart that had changed everything. "Now," he said, smiling, "we cook. A new tradition." 1 year later, the scent of impossible cuisines drifted through the restored underground market of New Shanghai. Where darkness and decay had once ruled, bioluminescent crystals now cast a warm glow over bustling crowds. At the heart of it all stood the Varanasi cart, no longer hidden but celebrated, its swirling patterns dancing in harmony with the quantum-infused dishes Kai created. "Today's memory is the Festival of Lights," he announced to the gathered crowd. Humans stood shoulder to shoulder with beings from a dozen worlds, all drawn by the legendary fusion of food and consciousness. A celebration from the height of Varanasi civilization, when all their worlds gathered to share stories through taste. His hands moved with practiced grace, no longer needing the protective gloves. The cart had changed him at a molecular level, allowing him to shape quantum flavors as naturally as he once chopped vegetables. Each ingredient he added to the crystalline bowl shifted through impossible colors, responding to his touch and intent. Zara watched from her new spice stall nearby, her color-changing eyes reflecting the dish's glow. She had become his supplier of both traditional and synthetic ingredients, her network of contacts proving invaluable in recreating extinct flavors. "The line grows longer every day," Dr. Patel observed, recording the event for the university's xenoarchaeology archives. The former underground lab had become a legitimate research station, studying the cultural impact of memory-infused cuisine. And still no sign of stellar dynamics. "They wouldn't dare return," Vexna chimed, their patterns shifting with amusement. The Varanasi observer had become a regular presence, teaching Kai the deeper mysteries of their culinary arts while ensuring the knowledge was used wisely. "The quantum protections are too well established now." Kai lifted the completed dish, a sphere of swirling light that pulsed like a miniature aurora. But unlike his first attempts, this wasn't purely Varanasi memory. He had learned to blend experiences, creating new traditions from the fusion of cultures. "This isn't just about preserving the past anymore," he explained to the waiting customers. "Each dish is an invitation to add your own memories, to become part of a continuing story." As the first taste touched their lips, the gathered beings gasped in unified wonder. They experienced the ancient Varanasi festival, but filtered through generations of human street food traditions. The joy of a child's first taste of ice cream merged with the wonder of alien spices. Earth's bustling night markets blended seamlessly with crystalline alien bazaars. "He's done it," Vexna whispered to no one in particular. "He's not just preserving our legacy, he's helping it grow." The success had brought changes to more than just the market. Similar carts had been discovered in hidden places across the galaxy, each awaiting its own guardian. A network of quantum-touched chefs was slowly emerging, sharing techniques and memories while protecting the knowledge from those who would abuse it. But Kai's cart remained special, the first to bridge the gap between past and future. The university had declared the market a cultural heritage site, protected by both human and Varanasi law. More importantly, it had become a place where barriers between species dissolved with every shared meal. As the evening deepened, Kai prepared a final dish, one of his own creation. The cart hummed in approval as he combined earth-born spices with synthesized Varanasi essences, adding a dash of quantum possibility. "What memory is this one?" asked a curious Centaurian, their feathered crest rippling with anticipation. Kai smiled, watching the colors swirl. "This is tomorrow," he said. "A taste of what we might become when we remember that the simplest meals can contain universes of understanding." The dish rose from his hands, glowing with potential. In its light, human and alien faces showed the same expression of wonder. The cart's patterns pulsed in rhythm with the collective heartbeats of the crowd, a reminder that some traditions never truly die, they just wait for the right moment to be reborn. Above them, through the market's restored crystal dome, the stars of New Shanghai shone bright and clear. Somewhere out there, other carts were awakening, other guardians were discovering their calling. But here, in this moment, as memory and taste and possibility swirled together, the future was being cooked one impossible dish at a time. Kai lifted the glowing creation, ready to share it with the waiting crowd. In its depths, he could see reflections of all that had led to this moment, the mystery, the danger, the transformation. But mostly he saw what the Varanasi had known all along, that the greatest recipes were never just about the food, but about the connections they created. "Time to taste tomorrow," he announced, and began to serve. In the quantum ripples of each bite, past and future merged, and a new tradition took root among the stars.